It is hard to believe that it has taken so long for me to come back to streaming. Naruke Alpha, how you doing? Yeah, I don't know. My name is Brian Morrison. I'll just get right into my normal intro spiel. It's been a long time since I've done this. Um, I've looked up. I looked up my last live stream that I did, and it was back in April of 2021. So it's hard to believe it's been that long. Life's been crazy. A lot of things have changed since the last time I was doing this. So yeah, I'm really excited to get started. So yeah, my name is Brian Morrison. For those of you who don't know me, if you're joining this after the fact, because these are always recorded and put on my YouTube channel for later on down the line, this is a recap of a live stream that I had done. Today's date is August 21st, right? Yeah, August 21st. So, yeah, I used to be a back-end developer. I'm technically a full-stack developer. I do a lot of front-end work, but a big majority of my focus in the I guess my professional life was in back-end stuff. So it's a lot of what I've specialized in. I've since moved on from doing actual development during the day into being a developer educator at Planet Scale. So predominantly my responsibilities are around creating content to help other developers learn how to use the platform. So a big reason why I'm getting back into streaming myself is so this way I can get some practice for doing it more professionally during the day for Planet Scale. Clutch Stream actually trying to make a CLI in Go. Well, you're in the right spot because that's what we're talking about today. I'm going to be building a CLI with Go. I actually built a CLI with Go. And the reason why I'm kind of talking this through before actually getting into the code is because the origin of my own CLI was actually around Planet Scale and developing documentation for our doc site as well as articles. I prefer to draft in Notion, and I needed a tool that would be able to convert things from Notion into a format that would be understandable by our documentation repository, and that's where the birth of this came from. Today, the main focus of this stream, or I guess my goal by the end of it, we'll see if we get there. I've only got about an hour today, so I got to cut out at about 9 p.m. Central, which is where I'm at, Chicago, is I'm going to build something that will take the block structure from a Notion page and convert it into HTML so I can upload it into my WordPress site, which is what I use as the content management system for my website. So the goal being is I want to be able to essentially run a command through CLI and move all the content from Notion into WordPress and not have to manually port this stuff over myself. A lot of work to save myself, the actual work of migrating it manually is not that big of a deal, but I like doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess let's hop into the code. I'll walk through the code base already. And you know what I'll actually do before we even do that, before I even get into the code itself, is, let's see, hub.com. I'm doing something off on the other screen right here. And I will pull it over here in just a moment, BMOC. So I named my CLI BMOC. Oh my goodness, this looks terrible in light mode, but I don't really know how to switch. Whatever, we'll roll with it. So this is my CLI. It's completely open source. It's open for anybody to be able to view it. So I will apparently not be able to send a chat. Yeah, I'm a little out of practice with this stuff. So apparently I cannot send chat through Streamlabs into YouTube. So I got to go to YouTube. .com/Brian Morrison me, and I will drop this in the chat there. Me. Sorry, we'll get to code in a second. I'm almost there, I promise. Shut up. Sign into chat. Oh, I gotta sign in there too. Damn. Okay, so that's the first thing I definitely have to fix. Is let's go to my channel. Gotta get chat working. Chat is not working. Let's mute that. And I will drop the URL to the source code for my CLI in chat, which is what you're seeing on screen right now. I open source this because I know building a CLI using Cobra, which is the framework that I'm using, it was definitely easier than building something manually using just Go native without some kind of framework. But it was a little confusing getting things set up properly. So I'm working on a Windows box. It's a new profile. Hopefully we don't run into any issues with doing this, but let's kind of get into it. So let's kind of explore the structure of this project. So as I've said, I used Cobra, which is kind of the CLI generator to do this, which generates some of this stuff for me. Let's close that out. But you can see in the main func, there is just this cmd.execute, and it calls in the root command here. Now, inside the root command, I basically have nested a lot of commands down in it. So the init function, which gets called when the project initializes, or the you know, or not the project, I guess, the I guess project, I don't know, the executable initializes, it's adding all these child commands. So I have it broken down in such a way that underneath the commands folder, I've got BM, stands for Brian Morrison. I've got config, which will pull config stuff in. I've got PS, which is my planet scale specific functionality that I'm building, all inside of here. So if I drill down specifically into BM content, let's see here. Actually, let's back up a second. So this line right here, 42, is adding bm.bm command into the root command, which adds it as nested. So what I can do then is I can do a clear screen in the terminal is I can go run.bm and hit enter, and it doesn't actually do anything. Can I do help? But I guess what it would do is it would call the stuff that's inside of here. Let's just do log.println hello world for just seeing something spit out to the screen. So if I hit enter there, I should get hello world spit out on the screen, which is that there. So it would run anything that's inside of here. Now, I don't have anything inside this command, which is why we didn't get anything initially. And it's fine. I don't need anything on the root of the command. I probably should echo out some kind of help text, but I'm not worried about that right now. So drilling down further, the BM command, sounds funny, but my initials, I can't do anything about that, has this content command, which is nested inside of a content folder. And this is, these are the subcommands of that. So there's a migrate command and a setup command. Setup, what that does is inside of my Notion workspace, which I'll pull over here. Oh, I got to change. I got light mode on this, and I don't like it. I used to be a big proponent of light mode when everyone was going dark mode, but I've since understood the error of my ways, and I don't like it as much now. So parents, let's switch that to dark mode so I don't blind everybody who's looking at stuff. And I have a whole workflow set up in Notion where I track a lot of the content that I'm working on. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling the setup command will set up a project for myself, which is kind of a related. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit too. It will set up a project in Notion, which is a related entity to something like let's do automating my Notion content pipeline. This one wasn't, that one wasn't set up. Let's look at run SQL script files on planet scale databases. This is something that's going to be dropping soon, so you get a preview of some of the things that I'm working on during the day. So it sets up stuff like this, all these tasks that I need to do around a specific content item that I'm producing. That is not what I'm working on today. What I'm working on today is this migrate command, and what this guy does is it lists the draft articles, so things that are in this draft in progress. Let's go ahead and move building Guardian Forge. The subclass Diamond is a post that I released at like 1 o'clock this morning. It's all written already. I kind of ninja'd this thing together. I didn't do a whole lot of planning because I was just really inspired to do it, so I cranked it out real fast. But anyway, what I'm looking to do is take everything that is underneath this draft with this horizontal rule, everything down here, I want to basically take it and all move it into WordPress. So that's kind of the big goal of this project here. If I go ahead and run this command, what it's going to do is it's using another framework called Bubble Tea that will give me a little bit of an interactive prompt. So if I go run bm content migrate, which is the full path of that command, and hit enter, what it should do is list out what it should do, which it's not doing. Draft in progress, draft complete. Let's try this again. It should list out, hold on, we're getting there. Creator, okay, so something's not working right, and I don't know why that is. It should list out a the specific content items that are ready for me to publish out to WordPress. Let's just to give an example, I'll do content setup, which should do the same thing. Yeah, so you're seeing build my own CLI with Go, getting started with SQL and Go. Those kind of correlate with getting started with SQL and Go, build my own CLI with Go. That's these two right here. So it looks like it's pulling from the selected field. So let's just, for the sake of argument, let's move this back into selected and run this command again. I'll press Q and run it again. And, oh wait, actually, you know what? We're doing a migrate. Oh, migate. How about if we spell it the right way? Yeah, so it's not seeing anything there. Let's move it over to draft complete and run it again so I can see if this actually spits back what I'm expecting it to, which it doesn't, of course. It's been a while since I've worked on this function, so I'm going to need to dig into it a little bit to find out what the hell I was doing when I initially did it. So we should list the draft articles. So one of the ways that I like to structure one of the ways that I like to structure my projects in Go is I follow a convention, not quite to a T that the clean code book kind of covers, but I try and adhere to some of those concepts. So separating out a lot of the functionality and what the responsibility of a specific file is into its own individual files. So inside of services, I have a notion.go file and I have a wordpress.go file. List draft articles, if I have 12 to that, is in the notion.go. So we should be I'm using Viper to get the notion underscore content DB configuration setting, which is set in the CLI. And then I'm filtering them down to anything that's where the status is draft in progress. Okay, so let's move this over to draft in progress and try running this one more time. Ciarali, sorry if I butchered your name, but thanks. Yeah, I noticed the same thing. Migrate was not spelled right. So there you go. There's building Guardian Forge, the subclass Diamond. For those of you who don't know, Guardian Forge is my side project, which is for Destiny gamers to create builds inside for Destiny players to showcase their builds from within the game on a public website. This was just kind of a recap that I did because they're eliminating a function in the game that I had kind of sunk a lot of work into designing and getting set up properly. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's clear screen and get a fresh terminal. So let's actually run this and we'll see. Oh, hold on. I got to check something first before I run this. Query database is where it will pull the actual database entries from Notion and display them. Let's kind of go down here. Present selectors utility function that I created. I also have a utils folder here, which has some stuff that is all like not necessarily something that's reaching out to an external. So services is where I put the code that's going to reach out to some kind of external provider. Utils is kind of where I will put these little snippets and things that I'm going to reuse within the application that don't necessarily correspond to a third-party service and don't have a good home. Utils is not, depending on who you talk to, utils is not really a good thing to do, but you know, it's mine, so I do what I want. Okay, so Notion to WordPress page is the function that actually calls it. So you can see I have this migrate command callback, which is a callback that runs when you actually hit enter. So I will, showing this again, let's do that migrate command again. When I hit enter on this keyboard, which I'm not going to do yet because I have to check a couple things, the callback is what actually is going to be executed. So I'm building a DTO, data transfer object, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term, and I'm pulling the page ID. The page ID is passed into the callback, and what this Notion to WordPress page function is going to do is it's going to find the page by the ID, parse out all of the props, and just to give a little more context to that, props in Notion is all this stuff up here. These are all considered props or properties. We're parsing some of that stuff out. We're going to find block by children ID. So this is where it gets a little funky, is with the Notion API, is when you pull a page, you get the page title with all the properties, but you don't get any of this stuff down here, which are considered the blocks. So I need to basically pull all of the block children by the ID of the page. So I'm passing the page ID to get this array of blocks, which is all. If you can see when I hover inside of Notion, there's this little, can I zoom in on this? Hey, I can. When I hover in on this, you can see there's this little kind of drag handle here where I can also click on it and have some options. That's considered a block in Notion. And this is what a Notion page is just a big array of all these blocks, right? So what I'm doing is I'm pulling all of those blocks, and in this giant for loop, I'm iterating over the blocks and basically trying to determine, based on the type of block it is, how I can render the HTML. Render that block to something that would be HTML, essentially. So with that said, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not actually doing anything with WordPress yet, because I've got the functionality to push stuff into WordPress working just fine. I'm at a point where I basically just need to like pull the data and then transform it into HTML before it goes into WordPress. Danny Thompson, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining the stream. I appreciate it. Okay, so with that said, let's run this and see what it looks like. I'm going to uncomment this line here that's going to log out the HTML, since that's predominantly what we're working with. What I might do by the end of this is I might actually just spit this out to a file that I'm like going over again and again, because that might be a little bit easier than pulling from the logs that's going to be spit out to the terminal and then parsing it into VS Code. So, okay, let's run this now because we're in a good spot. I'm going to go ahead and run this command again. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on my keyboard with that item selected. It says excerpt is empty because I don't have an expert. So let's just go ahead and it's one of the checks that I put in place because I want to make sure all of my things have an excerpt. Let's follow along on how I built the diamond. I don't know. It's not important what it actually says. So now let's run this again. And we should get something better. Okay, so here's all of this, right? I am going to copy everything here. It looks a little funky just based on the way that unprocessed paragraph. Geez, it looks really funky in Windows. I typically develop on a Mac now, and the log entries do not look like this. I'm spitting something else out to the console, so let's find out what the hell that is. All right, I don't want those unprocessed entries. I don't need block type code. I'm going to uncomment this guy, and actually I guess I'll have to uncomment this whole block for Go not to complain to me. Logging anything else out. Let's just try it again and see what happens. Yeah, log entries aren't quite lining up the way they're supposed to, but at least at this point I can copy this. I can create a new page here, or a new, I guess, tab here. We'll paste this in, and I'm going to HTML. Let's find a plugin that will reformat. I guess I could do XML. I think XML should reformat. XML. Let's look for an extension that will actually format XML. XML formatter. Let's try that. Okay, so we'll do XML. Still doesn't like that. Okay, how do we use this how do we use this guy now? Control-Alt-P format code. P format code. Well, that's cool. It doesn't even give me the option. Format selection with XML for HTML. Okay, that did something, I guess. Okay, so here is what this XML looks like. I can change the type. It's already set to XML. So I've got the paragraphs. I don't want this up here. We got to eliminate that. We got to eliminate draft because that corresponds with this stuff right here. So I don't want the notes and outline. This should be ignored, and this should be ignored. So that's going to be the first kind of low-hanging fruit to getting this thing done. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. You know what? I lied. I'm going to change my mind. I'm not overly concerned with that because that should be relatively easy to eliminate. So let's go into Notion, or into our code here. I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to find this block here. So this, oh yeah, I remember this is where I had left off at, and I don't know if I'm going to tackle the code stuff because that's going to be a little tricky. In order for me to format the code as the code that comes out of Notion as HTML, let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to not do that. So we're not going to log out the HTML. We're going to run this again. This is what that all looks like. It's this whole big chunk of thing. If I go and open this in a new tab, let's paste this in here. We'll format this as JSON. It's a pretty JSON. There's another function extension that I've used to do this. JSON. Prettify JSON. JSON, prettify. Didn't do it. I missed something. All right, let's look at this one more time. This is really not the nicest formatting done here. And I don't know why this looks all funky inside of the VS Code terminal. Let's get some lines and do this again. CLS, run it, hit enter, and yeah, it pretty much just spits out a bunch of garbage here. This looks like this is something we can work with. Let's try this. I'm going to go into our untitled here again, and we'll paste this in here. JSON. It doesn't like whatever is being spit out into the terminal. I don't quite know why. Anyway. So maybe the code is not something I want to tackle tonight. I went into this thing totally unprepared with what exactly I wanted to talk through. But let's see what other blocks we can do here. Go into Notion. So I've got H2s, which I think I have set up. All that stuff I'm not going to worry about. Images is something that I can totally work with. So one of the things that I've done with images is if you look at this HTML, you can see these little double mustache or double curly brackets here. What I'm doing is adding these placeholders. So what will happen is when this process is run, it will take the images, upload them to WordPress, add alt tags and captions and all that fun stuff, and then basically do a rip and replace of this kind of magic string, I guess is what I'm calling it, to throw an image img tag inside this HTML. I think that might be something I can work with. I kind of had a vague idea of how I wanted to do it, but I'm going to break this down again, trying to figure out what I'm doing. So I'm going to have to give these images captions. So I'm going to give this guy a caption, and I'm going to say, striker subclass tree nodes, because that's what that is, right? And now if I run this function again, I'm instead we're gonna uncomment out the HTML portion of this so we can see what this looks like. System cannot find the path specified. Uh-oh. Temp untitled.png. Where did I try and write to? Didn't create a TMP folder, so let me create a TMP folder. That might be where it was confused. Which that'll have to be something we fix, is kind of recursively creating the paths if it actually needs to. All right, so here it created the image, just striker subclass tree node. Files being used by another process, so it didn't like that. What should have happened inside of my WordPress instance is I should have at least had that image created, which, as you can see inside of WordPress, it did automatically upload it. It set the alt text. It gave it a title of this kind of slugified version of the image. And what the HTML should have done is given something inside of, if I go back, do I still have that HTML open? Inside of it, it would have taken that slug and throw it inside of here. So it would have been like striker, subclass, you know, yada, yada. So I got to figure that out first, is why it's not able to do that. So that actually occurs inside of the migrate command. And in this guy right here, this upload media from URL. This is another file in this service entry. All right, so we got git working directory. We got the folder temp, which I created. So let's see, download file, path.join. So here's where it would create the full path. We're going to rename this to a new name. So it's going to download the file using Notion's kind of, it's going to download the file using Notion's file name and then rename it to this new one that we saw here. That's, let's see, TMP. That's this image right here. Close this, we don't need that anymore. Lost my spot, so let's go here. So defer file.close. So here's where the post body was created. So this was done already. Create the post body. This is where it's actually uploading it into WordPress. Let's see. Here's where some of that update stuff. So what happens is when a image is uploaded into WordPress, it's not done using the actual JSON REST API. It's done using, I think it's still the REST API technically, but it's a different kind of request. Like you can see the content type is I'm actually pulling the content type from the file itself. So it's not quite the same thing. So what I have to do is, based on the file name that's uploaded into WordPress, I got to pull that back and then make some adjustments like adding the alt text and the caption. So because we saw that in WordPress, I know I got to this point. Let's just keep going down the line. Here is where that request was executed. So we've returned to source URL. So this all looks to be working fine. Now, since I've deferred the file close here, I wonder if create post body. I wonder if this is where it might be. I'm not deferring this close to the end. Well, no, because it would have closed it immediately as opposed to the end of the function. Whenever you see this defer in here, it basically, you're telling the Go language to say, wait until this function returns and then execute this code here. So it'll get all the way down to the end of the function, return whatever you want to return to the caller, and then execute this to close out like the request bodies and the file, the file readers and stuff like that. So this, I think, is all working fine. In here, I've got upload media from URL. I guess I can try and run this again and see. I'm going to put ASDF so we can see if that error is, if that's the spot where it's erroring out. And if that is the case, then yeah, we are getting an error somewhere inside of here. I guess we can see that still. Let's go and run this again. So that is right here. You could see, here's our little random text that we threw in there. So we could see that's exactly where it's closing out or where it's returning. So something inside of here is not working like I originally thought it was. So I go old school when trying to debug this stuff, and I will do log.println, and we'll say, I just throw the line numbers in, so I'll do 86, and we'll copy this somewhere down the line as we go. So at least if I could see in the logs where this is actually, where this, if I'm getting a log entry that says 94, then I know I've gotten to this line. If I'm getting, and my error handling in here is terrible. I would never do something like this in an actual production thing, but I'm not there yet. Well, who knows? Maybe we might just improve error handling in here. That might be enough of a project for tonight where, that might be enough of a project for tonight. All right, so we've got a couple of errors, a couple of entries in here. Let's throw one more towards the end here, and we'll do 149 for that line, and I will, that's close enough. Let's go and run this function again and see what happens. So we got to 86 and 94. I have no idea why it is doing this. This looks terrible. 116, 133, 149. So it actually got all the way down to the end of it. It got all the way down. Ah, here we go, right here. This is not, it's not liking this. So, why am I doing that? This is more of a cleanup thing. So I'm not going to remove this now. I'll figure that out another time. But now I can just Control Z all this stuff. Get out of here. All the way to the top. And then let's just get rid of this stuff that's going to try and close the file out. Yeah, I guess technically that makes sense because I didn't close the file above and now I'm trying to remove it. So what we might end up doing is instead of defer file.close, I might be able to fix this real quick here. We're going to copy that. We're going to get rid of that and we're going to move this down here. And I know this isn't necessarily best practice in Go is to move this down because you want to keep like code together. But if this works, then we're going to roll with it. Okay, so yeah, worked just fine. So here, to give a better example of what exactly I was talking about earlier, is if I get rid of this and look at the code again, paste this in, let's reformat this as format with HTML. You can see the image I have here is actually already replaced. So what it would have looked like is it would have had these double curly brackets with the alt tag or the slug in there, and it has since been replaced with you know, the actual JPEG path of that inside of my WordPress instance with the alt tag with this caption already put in there. So cool. So that actually works just how I want it to. Let's go ahead and rename the rest of these images just so we could see that the HTML that's being spat out is correct, and that would kind of fix that image issue. So we'll do Guardian Forge v2 subclass part components, which, by the way, Guardian Forge is entirely open source too, so if you are interested in seeing the source code, let me know and I can drop that in the chat too. And we'll say diamond without rotation applied. And I will say diamond with node selected. Last one, we will do Sunbreaker. It's the name of the subclass in Destiny 2 is this. Sunbreaker. Sunbreaker Diamond, I guess. It's fine. Again, I kind of published all of this, so I'm not overly concerned with it. With what I'm naming some of these captions. But let's run this one more time and see if we can get the rest of the thing out. I guess we're going to go back to the code thing, which is going to be a huge pain to try and figure out, only because if you've ever looked at code, if you've ever looked at those pretty annotated code blocks, I guess, syntax highlight. There we go. If you ever looked at one of those syntax highlighted components inside of a specific, inside of like a website, there is a lot of stuff applied that I'm going to basically have to kind of reverse engineer and figure out how to do myself. Because I did look to see if there was a library that would support it, but there apparently is not. So formats, format document. Whoa. It did apply some funky formatting here. That is a format with. What are we using format with? XML. Can I change this to XML? UTF-8, Markdown. Oh, why is it in Markdown? HTML. Format document. Format document with HTML language features. There we go. Okay, yeah, so here's our images. That's cool. We fixed that. So the image stuff should be working. And what I also want to do is I'm going to actually go back in here and I'm going to say, let's see. So here's the image. What I want to do is I want to throw an error if the thing doesn't have a caption. So how did I get there? So if I do images to upload, if slug equals this, then continue. So I kind of had this already in place, but I will say log.error. Or log.fatal. One or more images do not have captions. So now if I come back in here, and let's just get rid of this caption. I always want my images to have captions, so this way they have all that context inside of my website. So I've gotten rid of the caption. Let's go ahead and run this command one more time, and I'm expecting to get an error. I think I'd write a test around this, but this is fine. One of the things I will have to address, though, is the fact that, yeah, see, one or more images do not have captions. I probably should check all of them up front. Whoop, this is my spot. Yeah, let's do that. Instead of that, I'm going to, before I even try to upload all this stuff, because the problem is I've uploaded every image except for, you know, the last one, is I don't want to do that. So we'll run a for loop on this again. It's not technically a for loop, it's kind of a range loop, I guess. EL range dto.im to upload. If slug equals this. So we'll move this up here. Paste that in there. So before the images ever even try to upload, it will check to make sure that everything has a caption. And if it doesn't have a caption, then it's just going to error out before it tries to upload any of those images to WordPress. So let's take a look and see what everything I changed here. Put up mod, BM, we just changed that a little bit. We fixed some stuff in here. Coding.json got pulled in here. Why? Oh, because I'm echoing out the code block stuff. And then we moved this down here. Okay, so I'm gonna commit this now. Say, mygate command, God, image is working. What else am I working on, actually? Hold on. Let's save that. I'm going to save all this stuff and then re-review. Okay, migrate is the one that wasn't saved. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so commit. Again, new profile. I guess we're not committing. I forgot how to set... I forgot how to set default username in Git. So we're going to Google that real quick. How to set default username Git. Git config global user.name, user.email. So let's copy this. And I'm going to paste that. User.name, Ryan Morrison 2. And user.email. Ah, what did I do? BrianMorrison.me. See, all these little things. Now I'm going to have to see. I have a stream scheduled on Tuesday now, during the day. So now I know that in my other profile that I'm going to stream to Planet Skills channel with, I'm going to have to go through and fix that. So I'm actually going to write that down. It's global config. Because I don't want to be on stream and make myself look like an... I'd rather make myself look like an idiot on my stream, not my work stream. Sync. Is this going to work? Yeah, I'm not signed in. I'm not worried about that, though. I'm not going to about to sign in right now. I will fix that later. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I'll upload this stuff after the fact. Okay, so we've got that working. Now let's look at the possible monstrosity that is going to be figuring out how to get this thing code. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I go to BrianMorrison.me is my website. And if I look at my blog and I go to this is exactly the same post that I posted yesterday. So like this is that syntax highlighted thing that I was talking about, right? And you can see even what I have in place didn't quite do this the right way. It put these brackets around here, which I don't know why. I tried using plugin, but I'm gonna have to fix that. Also going to take a note to do that. It's never a lack of stuff to do. Okay. So all of this stuff right here, this is at syntax highlighting. If I right click on this and inspect it in the Chrome Dev Tools, let's go ahead and just expand this out because it doesn't matter. This is essentially what this looks like. And I'm not going to lie, I'm really kind of... I don't really know how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to pull this one off. Because you can see there's a pre that wraps the whole thing, and there's like the styling that's applied on it. Actually, you know what I am going to do, before I even go down that path, is I'm going to try and see if I can undo one of these components and see what happens. So I'm going to go to my actual site. And let's go to posts, and I have... Here's this guy here. Shut up. So I'm using this in Lighter.js plugin, and I don't necessarily know that that's what I want to use, but I don't remember how I got to this point, and I don't know how to undo it. Oh, this got pasted in like... Oh, maybe this didn't get pasted in like this. I know they do that sometimes. Let's just go to code. Block encountered an error. Let's delete this. Move block. And I will do code. Because what I might end up just doing is removing this in lighter source code. Okay, so this gives me a default source code thing. But can I select the language in here? Block, code, select code language. So this is actually going to be JSON. So let's select... do we have JSON on this list? Yeah, here we go. All right, so there's JSON. And this is the I think this code one is the default block that comes built into WordPress. So I'm going to go back into Notion, and let's grab this. Probably shouldn't have done this giant JSON object. I probably should have done the smaller CSS ones that I have, but we're too late for that now. And I'm going to get rid of some of these things, and we're going to pull this all into one Chrome window, and I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to paste that in there, or not, and let's copy this. I'm trying to see if I can somehow simplify this and paste this in here, because what I had set up at some point, way long time ago, is the ability to let the build process. So my website's built with Gatsby, and I'm using WordPress as the backend system. What I had set up at one point was when the website was building, as opposed to applying all the syntax highlighting inside of the WordPress side of thing, what it would do is it would scan the pages and apply the styling as it was building the site. It would modify the actual HTML that was coming from WordPress and apply all of that extra stuff that you saw, essentially. So that's been updated, and then what I have, which I will eventually do a video on this too, is I use an app on my phone. Oh, no, cancel. I use an app on my phone called HTTP Bot. Oh my goodness, hold on. And what it does is HTTP Bot is just a simple app on the iPhone that lets you call remote endpoints, remote API endpoints, right? So I have it hooked up to a Netlify webhook, so I can use here, I'll show you. I don't know if I can do this, if it's going to make any sense on there, but you can see I've got those actions there. I've got one there that says publish site, and that's using the shortcuts that's built into iOS. So HTTP Bot supports shortcuts, and it supports calling your webhooks from within shortcuts. So I swipe over and I click publish site, and it handles the whole build process. And I actually have a Discord webhook in here as well that will tell me when my website's finished building. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Netlify. And I guess we can log into Netlify. Why not? So we can monitor this process. In a sec, I'm going to log into my sites here. So I'm going to switch over to this guy here. GitHub. One moment. No, bye. Sorry, give me a second here. No, I don't need to authorize that. Okay. So here, all right, let's switch back here. So here's my website. It's built. You can see here is published 8:42 p.m., which is my local time. And let's refresh this page, and I just want to see what this looks like. Okay, so the formatting was applied, but I'm going to inspect this. I'm going to see how... okay. A lot of the stuff was still... Let me refresh this, actually. That seems kind of strange. It still was. What I almost want to do is look at the old version of my website and figure out what that thing was that I was doing in order to build that, because then I don't have to worry about it. Then I could just wrap the code inside here, as opposed to doing all of this, like applying all this custom inline stuff. Because like, if you look at the tag here, like, here's a span tag, you know, that's got all this like extra stuff that's added to it. Here's a span tag that basically just takes care of here, I'll zoom in on this. I don't think it's covering my face is covering it. It just adds this extra white space here. And like, I don't really want to try and figure out how to like rebuild that from scratch. So that's the thing I'm kind of stuck on right now. Let's just try and get the code into WordPress, I guess. Let's start there. So, HTML code block. Okay, so not the code. I want to see code pre. What's a pre? Pre and code block. Pre defines pre-formatted text. So I think pre wraps code, and then if I can take the... What does that look like? Let's inspect this again. And I think it's one of the classes here actually shows the thing. So pre's just got a whole lot of weird stuff going on here, which I could probably copy and paste that. But language hyphen JSON is the class of code. And I know I can pull that from the block that's inside of Notion. Let's just work with that, and we might get this working properly by the end of the stream. I highly doubt it, if I'm being entirely honest, though. But, you know, we'll do what we can. So I will close all this extra stuff out that I don't need. I guess we'll still need that open there. And then I have this here where I'm checking to see the code blocks, what the structure looks like here. Now I'm marshalling out the JSON, but I know I have, like, if I look at el.type, let me see, can I look at this actual thing? Here's all this stuff here, el.code.language. So let's log.println, el.code.language. Let's start there. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff because I don't need to go that far. And let's also log.println, el.code. What else do we have? Code. Children, language, rich text, block text. What is this text? Because the structures in Notion are a little funky too. Like, text is not just text. It's an array of this rich text object, right? So if I go in this, you could also see plain text is part in there. So I'm going to print out... Let's just print out text and see what that gives us. So I'll say text. Do that. And we'll say lang, so I could see what these look like when we're actually echoing these out. Let's run this again. And, oh, hold on a second. I want to comment out the whole HTML stuff because I don't want that to take over what we're trying to do here. So I'll close that out. Let's go into Notion, the Notion thing, and we'll say, I know it was logging out dto.html. See if we could find that entry where it's doing that again. Log.println dto.html. Okay, so it's not in here. I'll do the Control-Shift-Find. So log.println dto.html. All right, so we're in this migrate thing. I'm going to comment this out. And let's run it. See what happens. So this is what all this looks like. I don't understand what is going on with PowerShell and why it's echoing this all out. Like, all weird. Yeah, there's a lot. That's an address. So starting with the lang portion of it, the reason we got this here is because that's an address of a pointer. So if I want to do this the right way, I will have to, I think it's the star if I remember. Yeah, ampersand points to an address. Star will pull out the content of that specific memory location and print it out. So I'm going to also, actually, instead of printing the actual text, let's convert that to JSON. So we'll do el.code.text. Save that, and we'll say text. So instead, what we're doing is we're going to convert that to JSON, and then print it out, as opposed to using the Go's kind of native built-in printer for its objects and structs. One of the things I don't like about that is when you're printing out an object, it doesn't actually show you the names of what the fields are. It just prints out the content of the fields, which doesn't help with structure and figuring out what you're trying to find. So let's run this again. Enter. You see, it's a little bit different. Here's an example of this text thing here. So we're going one or more things don't have images. That's fine. So I'm going to I'm going to copy that, and we're going to open up a new file, paste that, JSON. It still didn't print it out to JSON. I don't know why. The JSON that this seems to be spitting out inside of, the way that this is printing out inside the console is really killing me right now. Like, it's not supposed to look like this. IMG wrapper outer. it's like it's not properly escaping some of the quotes inside of here, and it's also printing out a lot of stuff in unit, like these Unicode characters here. Let's see, go. Let's see if Unicode escape. What is that? How to marshal with Unicode escape. Talk about new API. Up to ASCII. I don't want to go through that hassle right now, to be entirely honest. We can at least see what the lang is here. There's text. Lang is Java, is types. Okay, so that's TypeScript. Text annotations, default plain text function. Let's see if we can do, instead of marshalling the JSON, let's try and iterate over the plain text, because again, that is, oh, you know what? I wonder, what is this? What is plain text? Plain text is undefined. Okay, so that's not going to help us. Which text block do? Let's see what that looks like. Rich text block code is caption and language. Okay, so that's just going to be text. Let's iterate over text and print out each line. So for el range el.code.text. Let's log.println el. Why not? This print. No, we can convert it to JIT. You know what? Instead of log, I'm gonna just do an fmt.println instead of logging out with those extra those date and timestamps. I'm curious to know what this looks like. And I apologize. I know this isn't the kind of cleanest and most organized stream I've ever done, but it is what it is right now. So, okay, if I iterate over it, what I can probably do is build a string, because I'm not seeing a lot of that Unicode stuff. The formatting looks super funky in here, mostly because of the way that PowerShell seems to be rendering this, and I have no idea why, and it's super frustrating. I tried getting WSL set up ahead of time for the stream, and I wasn't able to quite get that working the right way. So let's build a string. So let's say code str is equal to just an empty string, and for each one of these ELs, whoops, what the hell did I do? I see that red line down there, so I know we can come here. So for each one of these, we're going to iterate over it, and we'll say code str plus equals el dot plain text, and this log, and it's fmt dot print. Let's just do code str. Let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to clear screen, CLS, add some spaces there, and run the function again. Hit enter. It looks all funky. There's a whole lot of weird formatting going on here. You see, it's adding all this extra white space here, but it's hard to know if that's actually what's being printed out, or if that's the way PowerShell is rendering it. Okay, so I'm getting close to time, but let's see what we can do here. Why not? Let's see if we can actually get something uploaded into WordPress. Let's at least get that far. All right, so I've got a code string and I've got the language. So let's say dto.html plus equals .html plus equals. So if we're looking at a code block, we said it's wrapped in a pre, so we can add pre like that, and then it's also wrapped in that code. And let's see what the class looked like again. So class equals language hyphen and whatever the class is. I might have to end up adding some kind of like converter in here in order to like to match up what Notion's going to have compared to what I need to have in the HTML. Let's say class is equal to, and I'll escape my quote here, and we'll say language hyphen and then JSON. We'll fix this in a second, and we'll close that out. we will, instead of putting language JSON like this, fmt.sprintf, this is the way you do something like a string builder, where you can do a replace in there, so I'll leave that like that. %v is going to replace that string inside of there, and then let's put our language here, so el.code.language. And again, I need to pull out the value of that pointer instead of looking at the actual pointer address itself, which is why I have that star there. Otherwise, we're going to get that weird memory address, and it's not really going to help us a whole lot. So that will add the beginning of this whole thing that's wrapping the code block. And then at the end of this, we'll have our code str variable here, which will have the plain text content of that code itself. And what we can do there is we can do dto.html plus equals the code str. And then I could also do a sprintf there, but instead I'm going to do dto.html plus equals, we'll close out our code block, and then we'll also close out our pre block. So this should have an open pre, an open code block with the language. We're going to inject all of the JSON, whatever the code is, just put it inside of those two blocks, and then close the code, close the pre, and then move on. I'm going to get rid of some of this extra stuff that we don't need anymore. I'm going to save this. And, you know, for the sake of it, let's just see how this ends up coming out into WordPress before I close out. So let's go into our migrate command. Here is all of the stuff that actually gets pushed into WordPress. Uncomment that. Slug.makeDTO title is going to be the slug of the actual WordPress page. This is, I don't like that, so I'm gonna fix this root. Well, I'll hardcode this for now. Why not? 21. What I'm going to do next is we'll pull this out so it's dynamic, and it should be whatever the published date is. I'm actually doing it right now, or maybe I can pull it from a prop. I'm not worried about that right now because that shouldn't be terribly difficult to do. All right, so let's actually run this whole migrate thing. I have to fix one thing here because I know it's going to fail because we got rid of this caption. So we'll go down here. Notion sometimes does freak out and moves things around. Sunbreaker tree. Just save that. And enter. So I hit enter. I don't know if I was focused on this. One of the things that I noticed about Bubble Tea is sometimes if you hit enter twice, it tries to run the code twice. Okay, so I got it done, which means it should have been uploaded into WordPress. So I'm going to go back to WordPress. I'm going to go to my test site and go to dashboard and go to posts. And I am surprised this actually worked. I'm surprised I was able to publish it twice. So let's look at this, and I can see I have all this HTML. Here's that code block right here. So here's pre, and then here's the code block, language JavaScript. And we have super config and all the JSON that came in here. See, I kind of figured, I'm like, I think it has something to do with the fact that that PowerShell was just rendering this weird, because you could see inside the actual HTML that was published up into WordPress, it looks fine. Now, I have a Markdown plugin in here, which I'm probably going to get rid of. I don't know that I need it anymore. This doesn't look great, but yeah, let's see what it looks like on the preview itself. So preview, open preview, new tab. Yeah, so it doesn't look great. It doesn't apply some of that formatting, but it's there. We've made some progress. Okay, so I think that is going to be it. But we can see from everything that I've built so far, I didn't put any of this stuff in here. Now, I know I showed you a very similar entry in here that was powering my actual website. But what's different here is I'm actually in a completely different site. I use WordPress multi-site for different things. So I have my brianmorrison.me site, and then I also have a test site that I use to experiment with stuff like this. And we're inside the test site here. So this is not what I had manually moved over. This is completely separate. I need to figure out how to fix this, how to get the code working. But that just might be a case of I fix that in the build process, so this way I can automate all this stuff. We'll see. If I can find a Go library that will do it, that would help a lot. But you can see our images are uploaded, our captions are added, all of the text that came from Notion is all pushed up here. It doesn't look pretty here because I'm using just the default WordPress stuff, and I honestly don't even care about it, only because I don't care because all of the CSS and stuff and formatting is all inside of my Gatsby site. Okay. I think that's going to be that. So hopefully you learned something. Again, I apologize. I know the stream was kind of all over the place. This is the first time I've done this in a while. It was really just to get some practice ahead of the time thing that I have to do for work on Tuesday. So with that said, I'm going to sign out. But if you are interested in seeing more of some of the stuff that I do, twitch.tv/PlanetScale is where I will be live on Tuesday. I'm actually going to be covering a new package that was just released that allows... The new package that was released is an npm package that allows you to execute SQL commands over an HTTP API that is eventually going to be made more public, but for the time being, this circumvents some of the problems that developers had run up against when building things inside of edge functions, which typically do not allow arbitrary outgoing TCP connections to, random places. Instead, you have to go over HTTPs. This solves that problem. So I'll be building a series of Lambda functions and a whole API that will utilize this package and kind of walk through how to query your PlanetScale database. So join me for that. But I plan to do this more. I plan to get back into live streaming. I don't know if it's going to be predominantly coding or I might actually go down the gaming route. You can see I've got Shax and Sundance watching over me down here. I'm a nerd. Deal with it. That's it. I'm done. Again, if you're interested in this type of content, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, all that normal YouTuber stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.